Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome to lecture 41. In this lecture we will discuss the various centrally sponsored schemes and programs. What are the ongoing programs right now in the urban development sector in India, and what is the implications in the urban local bodies. That is what we are going to discuss. In the last lecture we discussed various aspects of designing urban spaces, and we have seen that how urban spaces can be made beautiful and interesting, and it can create a vibrant space for allowing people to interact each other and making a robust community. So, that is what we have discussed in the last lecture. So, today our basic points of discussions will be concepts and interrelations between the programs and the schemes, a brief account of the earlier centrally sponsored scheme, and what are the ongoing programs that also we are going to see. In the second point we also will see the what are the major learnings of those earlier programs, that also we will have a look, and then ongoing programs and scheme that will start today, but definitely within another 3-4 lectures we will complete the major programs, so that you can get an idea that how to mobilize the fund under the major programs under this Government of India. So, let us start with the function of urban local bodies as per the 12th schedule. I hope you recall this chart which we showed in earlier lectures. Now, please have a look again once again. Now, in this you know that in 12th schedule there are 18 jobs, and out of 18 jobs, now if you see properly that some of the jobs are requiring intensive capital investment, for example roads and bridge, then water supply, public health, then slum upgradation, then provision of amenities, then burial grounds, public amenities. Okay. Now, the question is that in urban local bodies, from where they will get the adequate fund. So, if you see properly that for urban local bodies they have very limited resources and the sources of the own funding. So, largely they depend on the central government and the state government for their funding to fulfill the function of the 12th schedule, which is given in the 74th Constitutional Amendment Act. Now basically after the independence all these programs have been continued through a central schemes. So, central schemes are nothing but a structured program or structured system where under some terms and condition for actual development work, the municipalities and the urban development authorities or urban sector organizations, they get funding from the government. Now, there is a confusion between what is a scheme and what is a program. Ideally, when we make a long duration activities like more than 5 years or so, we call it a program, but a scheme could be a short term or a medium term or a project specific schemes. But however, as a general term, central government identifies central sponsored scheme as CSS. So, do not be confused about the terminology about the scheme and the program. In some of the cases it may be mentioned that as a scheme, but basically since it is a long duration activities like say 5 years, 7 years or 10 years. So, it will be actually a program. So, a program is distinctly different from a project. A program starts somewhere and it has a target to be fulfilled after long duration time, and it has several phases, yearly or bi-yearly phases, and every phase it has some target to be achieved. For example, JNNURM, Amrut, all these programs are long duration program, 7 years, 10 years program. One by one we will discuss all those programs. So, this program has been a mainstream source for the funding for the urban local bodies in India. Now, let us see what are the public interventions in housing and urban development which happened till 1947 and after that time. So, we are focusing here mostly on the housing and urban development, even though there are centrally sponsored programs and scheme for other sector like social sector or economic sector, but we are focusing on the housing and urban development. So, you can see that there are programs like subsidized urban housing scheme, low income housing scheme, then schemes for the plantation workers, slum clearance and improvement scheme, then the housing for the middle income group, rental housing scheme, then village housing project scheme, land acquisition and development by the state government pertaining to urban infrastructure and housing both, then several acts including rent control acts, then setting up of HUDCO, Housing and Urban Development Corporation. The main objective of HUDCO was to streamline the funding and the technical expertise in the urban infrastructure and housing. Then the houseless workers in rural areas, environmental improvement of urban slums. The basic objective of this program, in short it is EIUS, was to improve the basic services of the slum population in our cities. Then the setting up of HDFC, the objective of HDFC was to ensure and streamline the housing finance for the poor people and the middle income group people mainly. And then site and services scheme, the objective of the site and services scheme was to provide a site to the poor people and provide basic amenities and service, so that the building construction can be made by the poor people. In 1981, then scheme for low cost sanitation came, where again some amount of funding was given for low cost sanitation to the poor people. 80s it continued the site and services scheme. In 81 and 89, scheme for urban low cost sanitation again continued. Then Indira Awas Yojana, it is a flagship program, you might have heard about this scheme, flagship program on the rural housing, and it is still continuing. Then there was scheme like urban basic services scheme, it is aimed at basic services like water supply, sanitation. National Housing Bank was set up. Objective of National Housing Bank was to streamline the institutionalization of the housing finance institution, so that people get more number of housing finance benefit. Then in 1988, National Housing Policy for the first time came. So, at a glance you can see the growth from 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000, 2010 and 2020. Now, till this point, till 1990, whatever we showed you, it was basically aimed to schemes and the program, and government's role was to provide some facilities or enabling the individual and organization to do something. Now, here basically government approach was scheme based, and mostly department and target group driven, and there was lack of comprehensiveness, missing due to too many programs, too many schemes going parallelly, and because of this after 1990s government thought that there could be a flagship program or a comprehensive program which can combine every urban development schemes together, and there could be a change from the earlier paradigm of lack of effectiveness and the performance in terms of the service delivery or completion of the project to a efficient urban governance, efficient management by the urban local bodies. That is why in post 2000 Government of India thought that let us make a comprehensive program and let that program be linked with the reform. For example, in 2004 they 4 and 5 they came with JNNURM. So, background of JNNURM was a need for comprehensive program second is it is a reform linked program, because from the earlier program it has been seen that the money is provided, money is given or sanctioned, but ultimately it may not see the targeted objective, or it may not see the outcome which is aimed in the beginning of the project or the scheme. Therefore, a reform linked program has been considered, has been thought in JNNURM. So, considering that following the JNNURM, there were another action by Government of India, that is 2007 National Urban Housing and Habitat Policy. In 2009 they came up with another housing program called Rajiv Aabas Yojana. It is the counter, I mean similar like Indira Aabas Yojana. They tried to bring a flagship housing program in urban sector. In 2009 they came up with affordable housing in partnership, promoting public private partnership, and then after that in post 2012. So, you can find that 2005 to 2012, in the 7 years all the municipalities, they were mandated to make a planned activity so that they can achieve a comprehensive or combined approach from all the centrally sponsored scheme through a comprehensive scheme like JNNURM. With this JNNURM, earlier programs were stopped, it was not continued, like VAMBE and other program which we discussed. Second is that since it is a reform linked program, they improved the performance. Then after 2012, the concept like credit risk guarantee fund scheme and Rajiv Rin Yojana, all these schemes came, and after the change of the government in 2014, the whole program again changed, and now presently there are programs like Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana which replaced the Rajiv Awas Yojana. We have Amrut, Atal Mission for Rejuvenation and Urban Transformation which replaced the JNNURM more or less in the same format, whereas the Swachh Bharat Mission has been created and designed to give a focused attention in the waste management and the solid waste management, and then there is a smart city mission focused to create several smart cities in India. So, right now we have several programs in the urban sector. So, that is what has been changed in last about 5 years or about 5 years. So, the basic consideration during the JNNURM program was the need for comprehensive program and reform linked program. These two objectives and these two target has been continued in the current program as well. Now, during the last 50 or 60 years of urban development program, the major barriers and learnings were like housing affordability. We have seen that because of the gap between the capacity and the price, the people could not afford the housing. Speedier technology and system, people could not, the projects delayed most of the cases due to archaic technology, plus other problem like land. Many projects were halted and delayed because of the non availability of the land, and it has been seen a very difficult situation and a pressing problem in the urban sector. Then institutional and policy framework at the local level, state level, local level, even though after the 74th Constitutional Amendment Act the local governments were made, but local governments were found not much performing and not much effective in delivering the services and in creating new infrastructures and new assets. That was the problem found in the institutional framework. Then building materials in some areas made the problems along with the technology which we have seen. Then the skilled and unskilled labor, basically the availability of the laborers were the problem. Some of the municipalities they tried using the people and community through a self-help mechanism which worked sometimes, but mostly it was a problem of the availability of the skilled and unskilled labor. Then lack of appropriate standards, norms and schedule. After 50 or 60 years of independence, there was lack of standards, norms and schedules, but the competent authorities they have been trying to make timely and contextual standards and norms. So, right now the much of the problem has been reduced, but still it needs lot of reorientation and improvement. Now, let us see what are the programs going on in the current urban development paradigm. The first is the Amrut, which replaces the JNNURM. So, the full form of the Amrut is the Atal Mission and Rejuvenation of an Urban Transformation. Then Smart City Mission, the objective of this Smart City Mission is to develop in the first stage 100 smart cities. Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana is aimed to achieve housing for all. National Urban Livelihood Mission, its objective is to ensure livelihood and job for poor. And Heritage City and Augmentations Yojana, in short it is Hriday, its objective was to ensure and preserve the urban conservation and heritage elements. And you know the Swachh Bharat mission or SBM, the objective of this Swachh Bharat mission, it has been launched to eliminate the open defecation problem from the country. Elimination and achieve 100%. So, in coming lectures we will discuss all these programs in details. However, there are many other programs, social sector programs given by the other ministry. So, we will provide some reference material, but definitely we will not get the time to discuss all and each and every programs. So, with this I would like to conclude today's lecture. Today we have discussed that to fulfill the mandate of the 74th Constitutional Amendment Act, that is the 18th job by the municipality, it is very much difficult for the municipalities and the urban government to fulfill all the program, because they lack the basic funding from their own source or the state source. Therefore, they always dependent on the funding from the central government, and this funding came in as a centrally sponsored scheme and programs. Now, this scheme is basically a short duration activity, short duration development activity, basically 1 or 2 years, but program is a long duration activity, minimum 5 years, but in usual cases, in normal cases, the centrally sponsored programs are also sometimes named as schemes. So, this centrally sponsored schemes or CSS has been the mainstream funding sources for the urban local bodies. Then we have seen that the kind of programs or the schemes which was there after the independence, and we have seen that major problems on the schemes were this, where the schemes were in piecemeal approach, there was lack of comprehensiveness, and all the schemes had suffered due to lack of land, lack of manpower or skilled labor, and it suffered due to the effective technological option, it suffered due to the institutional mechanism at the local level and state level also, and also it lacked absence of a reform league program, and the local level organizations, they suffered because the lack of capacity and effectiveness at their end. Because of that, in last 10 years or 15 years, Government of India tried to bring the reform league and comprehensive program instead of piecemeal and very fragmented programs like JNNURM, and later it continued as Amrut, Smart City Mission and many other programs. So, with this we conclude this lecture. Next few lectures will be focused more on the urban sector programs, and next lecture we will discuss on Amrut, which is basically a continuation of the JNNURM. So, with this I thank you very much for attending the lecture.